It's my pleasure to invite Gopi Ganesalingam, VP of Enterprise Development from MDEC, to join us today to share his very valuable insights. Okay, so Gopi, we'll keep this very casual, right?
Sure.
So let's just have a conversation, and I'll open it up to Q&A later. But let's just get some things out of the way.
Sure.
I think a lot of people may not know that before you are associated with MDEC, you were an entrepreneur yourself, and you started up Lava Protocols.
Lava Protocols, yeah.
And perhaps you want to start us off, tell us a little bit about your background.
So, I've been with MDEC, Malaysia Digital Economy Corporation, for the last 3 years now. And I'm the Vice President for Enterprise Development. Enterprise development is all about building and scaling our local tech companies. So prior to that, I was the founder of Lava Protocols, and we had Lava Protocols, Lava Labs, and Lava Media. And Lava was set up in 2007. When I returned from Australia, I was working for a company called Telstra in Australia as the regional head for commercial. And I wanted to come back to Malaysia, and I realized that, you know, after being in Australia for so long, it was very difficult to find a job here that suited my character and my skills. And there was a push for me to be an entrepreneur. And I come from a family, no one's an entrepreneur, I'm the first one. And it was a very difficult decision to make. But there was a calling, I thought there was a calling, and the calling was very, very right. And I started this company called Lava Protocols, and I brought a company called Salesforce.com into Malaysia. So Salesforce today is one of the largest cloud companies in the world, and you know, because I had a first mover advantage, and then we became the first reseller as well in ASEAN and second in APAC, and we built the business from there.
Okay. What were some of the key challenges that you faced as an entrepreneur?
So key challenges, a lot of challenges. I remember I was on Breakfast Grill in 2007 on BFM, and they asked me, do you have any regrets going on your own after having such a beautiful corporate life? I was only 43 at that time. And I said, regrets? Yeah, maybe 4 or 5 times a day. Because it was not easy. Anything that could go wrong went wrong. Anything that you did not foresee and it happened, it happened. So it wasn't a very, very straightforward journey. Well, from the outside, everybody thinks you're doing really well. How you pay your bills, how you pay the salary, it's all a big challenge. So a lot of challenges, lots of challenges.
And I know we have a lot of entrepreneurs in the audience, and when you said 4 or 5 times a day, I think a lot of them can relate to that as well. So I'm not going to let you off the hook yet. 4 to 5 times a day, but in terms of really core business model challenges, you know, what was that? Here
is it. So I have a finance background, right? Mm-hmm. And together we built many MNCs. I worked in American Express for 8 years. I worked for Lucent Technology for 4 years, and I worked for Telstra for 3 to 4 years. And because I was in the commercial side, I saw the companies making a lot of money. So I said, why can't I do this for myself? So that was the first instinct to go on my own. So I knew, when I found the Salesforce business model, which was at that time very revolutionizing, because they moved away from hardware and they were going to software, and they had this licensing model. And so the proposition was at that time is to go and convince big corporates not to buy your typical IBM or Oracle, but subscribe to at that time it was known as on-demand service. I found it made sense. It really, really made sense. And I said, yeah, this is a no-brainer. And then I went out to the market, and so I wanted to resign and spoke to my boss. My boss is an absolutely nice guy. We built the business together in APAC, and I told my boss, you know, I think I want to get back home. I want to be in Malaysia. I'm finding it very difficult to be traveling between Sydney and KL. And so that was a Monday evening. So he said, let's go for dinner. Let me talk to you. So Monday he tried to convince me not to go. Tuesday he tried to convince me not to go. Wednesday he tried to convince me not to go. Friday I was catching a flight to KL. Thursday he tried, and Thursday night he told me, you're stubborn. He said, don't resign. I'll give you a package. I'll make you redundant. So that, suddenly I had 3 years salary coming in. And then I came back, I thought, wow, this is not very easy to make money, right? So I started this company, I went and saw Salesforce, they gave me the rights. And then I quickly got 2 or 3 contracts from Malaysia Airlines, Telcom. So this is a no-brainer. This is it, gung-ho. Wow, after that 3 years I struggled. It was not easy. All my savings went. I had to really, but I believed in the model. So the story here is you must believe in what you're doing. You must really have a conviction of what you want to do. Are you ready to put your last dollar, onto the business? Are you willing to bet the last dollar? If you are convinced that much, you will make it work.
Sounds like there's also a fine line between conviction and stubbornness as well, right?
It's conviction.
Conviction, okay. So you said it was pretty easy to get that first few sales. Talk us through that. What made that easy? And
I think I was lucky. I managed to speak to all the right people. So the business that I was trying to sell is about coming away from a typically large hardware purchase. So I was able to speak to CFOs and CEOs to paint the picture. So you must be able to tell a story, right? And I think they got my story. So after that, so the first few were very good, very easy to sell. And after that, it was not easy because a lot of the CEOs were very old-fashioned, old mindset. But today, things are different. You get all the young guys coming in, they understand exactly the value proposition. So by that time, it was tough, right? So those were some of the challenges.
And you said after you made those sales, made those deals, that the next 3 years were difficult. I'm assuming there are operational difficulties.
No, sales.
Oh, still sales. What about operational side?
Operational, I was lucky. When I started, I identified very young talent, and I nurtured them, and we invested a lot of money and resources on these talent. We grew the company as a very, very easygoing but caring, like a family sort of thing. It was a lot of fellowship. So everyone was, at that time it was all cubicles, but we were like this and woke in 2007. It was a very new concept because we learned it from Salesforce, we learned it from Google on how to run the office. So we changed the entire mindset. We were probably one of the first offices in Malaysia to be very open. And we grew the team that most of them are still there. And so that was how we got around the difficult period. Everybody was together. Everybody fought the battle together. We cried together. We laughed together. We celebrated together. We worked really hard, and that made a difference.
Okay. And as you grew the company from startup to where it got to, what were those key learnings that you had? And how did you evolve as a CEO entrepreneur?
Sure. So I started my career in 1990, right? At that time, things were different. So we had bosses. They tell you what to do. But as you progress, today the digital technology has come in, the way we work is different. I realized that the millennials, the Gen Ys, they need to be managed very differently. And bosses are no longer required. You needed leaders. And you needed to be a leader. A leader is very different from a boss. A boss tells you what to do. A leader works with you, right? The leader goes through with you. Leader just nurtures you, guides you. So I think the lesson I took away was not to be a boss and to be a leader.
Okay. And now you've moved over to MDEC and you look at it from a different perspective. I think you look at it from an ecosystem perspective.
Exactly.
Instead from a single entity perspective.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so how has that changed? How has your views changed now that you've had a chance to look at it from a nationalistic viewpoint?
The first 4 or 5 months was tough because I was still very much P&L. But now I look at the ecosystem, this kind of talks, for example, so necessary. People are beginning to understand that you're not the only one having the same problem. Everybody's got the problem. But are you willing to fight it out, So the ecosystem now has evolved. You have a lot of sharing spaces. For example, when we first started, we had to go and rent offices. But today, and so when you have to rent office, you have to do the renovation cost, you have to pay the deposits, you had to buy the tables, you had to have the staff. So the cash flow was, first few 100,000 just went off, just like that. But today that's not the case. You can start small, you can take a shared concept, you can have a shared office, you can, most of this software is all subscription based, so your cash flow that's going on is very limited. So that's a very big difference on how the ecosystem has changed, and we are trying to change it even more. So MDEC is actually trying to change that ecosystem, trying to make it very startup friendly. We've got the minds of the entrepreneurs who have made it, who are coming back to do all this. Yeah.
Okay, a couple of points there that I'd want to elaborate on, so I'll take it one at a time. You said make it startup friendly. Could you elaborate on that? What does that mean?
I think MDEC recognizes the fact that the startups need to have a different sort of an ecosystem rather than from the enterprises. For example, we introduced the digital hub, right? A digital hub is very much a concept from the Silicon Valley. The Silicon Valley is made up by entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs have become mentors, and then they've got the money, and then they've got the technology behind. A digital hub has got all of that. It's got an entrepreneur running it. It's got the entrepreneur is a mentor. He's got mentors in there, and probably they have a VC, or the entrepreneur himself has got money to invest. So they invite these young guys who want to do startups to come in there, and they nurture them. And then if that picks up, right, they're able to even invest in them or mentor them to the next level. It's today's game of startup is about being able to have a good business model that's scalable, right? So the mentors help you with that.
Okay. And I guess you're talking about, from an MDEC perspective, it says the digital economy. So I'm sure there's some of these SMEs out here in the audience who are more brick and mortar as well. And some of them, of course, are very highly technologically already into the digital economy. So any advice for them on what to look out for from a brick and mortar perspective? What should they be looking out for? What should they be thinking? Things like that.
Actually, if you're on brick and mortar, I would say quickly, brick and mortar, you all know the Kodak story, right? I'll tell you the Kodak story. Kodak story is about, the Kodak is a very popular story where it failed to go digital. They invented the digital technology, digital films and camera, but they didn't market it because it was going to kill their business. So they took time. But when Apple came in with a phone, they killed the business of Kodak, right? And so Kodak collapsed. Kodak went bankrupt, and so they had to reinvent themselves, and they started again as I think a food company, if I'm not mistaken. Because I saw a video where they interviewed the new CEO of Kodak, and the interviewer asked the new CEO of Kodak, why have you now chosen to be the food business? He says, I know this is the only thing that won't go digital. So the brick and mortar companies must relook at their model, because there's a lot of advantages to go digital. If you look at companies like iFlakes, if you look at companies like Grab, if you look at companies like Nidaroom, they're all on digital platforms, right? So they're able to scale so fast because it's just a platform. They're able to have presence in so many countries, even without having an office there. So this is digital technology, right? So if you're having a brick and mortar company, you may be having a good product, but think about how you want to move that onto a digital platform. Companies that don't do that are going to be at risk, or already at risk, or even losing market share.
Okay, and in terms of the ecosystem, the support for that, right? I think there's two types of companies there. One is the companies that are already in the digital economy, and how do we, in Malaysia or through MDEC, help them take the next step? And the second question is for the brick and mortar companies to transform their business models into the digital economy. How do we help them, support them?
Sure. So on the first question, so we have two parts of, we got three things that MDEC is doing. MDEC's got ecosystem play in 6 different sectors. One is big data, Internet of Things, IoT. Then we have cloud, we have security, we have e-commerce, and we have fintech. So all this we have, we are focused on bringing the latest technology into town. Then and then we have another ecosystem within MDEC called GED, where it's for startups, digital hub. It's about scaling up startups, bringing the startups up. And then you have another part of MDEC that's called GAIN, Global Acceleration Innovation Network. That's where I am from. And this is about taking companies that are doing very well and taking them to the next level. Can they be now regional? If they're regional, can they be global? So all these programs are ecosystem enablers, right? These are all ecosystem enablers. So that to answer your first question. Second question was what again?
For the brick and mortar to
so
play
the brick and
digital.
mortar, so MDEC runs another program called VIP, Value Innovation Platform. Value Innovation Platform is a program that identifies your current business and the potential it has to go digital. Which part of your business can go digital? Which are new digital revenues that you can create? So we're having a lot of corporates, big names, going through the program, identifying which part of their business can go digital, right? So this is some of the help we're giving the industry.
Okay, and in your opinion, personal opinion, and doesn't have to be MDEC's opinion, can be your personal opinion, how close are we to a Silicon Valley-like environment? And that's a very broad question, right? It's not only in terms of ecosystem, but also in terms of culture, in terms of people's capabilities. Are we getting the right exposure? Are people aspiring high enough?
So I don't think anyone can rebuild. Nobody can copy Silicon Valley. Even America can't do it, right? Because it is all out of accident. And I went there 3 times the last 3 years. We took a bunch of companies there. And I'll tell you, the bunch of companies that we took, probably totaling to about 60, 70 companies now, those entrepreneurs have changed their mindset. They are very Silicon Valley thinking. This concept in work is Silicon Valley thinking. Today we had an event at MDEC GAIN, that was our event, GAIN event, where we had about 140 or odd companies, 200 people, 200 entrepreneurs and partners came onto the event. It was amazing because we had people like CC Puan of Green Packets, we had people like Patrick of iFlix, Catcher Group, we had Vision of Mind Valley, we had Andrew of End to End, we had Joel of from a Groupon and KFIT, now it's Faith. So we had all these Malaysian entrepreneurs, right, on stage speaking about their digital company and how they have gone to a global reach, right? So to answer your question, I think that it's already there. We don't have a definite place to go, but I think the mindset's changing. The way we do things are all very Silicon Valley based. It's already happening. We will never have a Silicon Valley per se, but I think the mindset has already started changing.
And to continue down the journey, what would you say are the pitfalls that the SMEs should look out for? The challenges that they're likely to face that you know, if you were to advise them, watch out for this, watch out for that.
On business?
Yeah.
I would say managing a cash is number 1. Having the right business model is number 2. So do you have a business model that gives you cash upfront? So the subscription model, I like it because you pay for what you use. And then, are you building the right team, right? You must have all the right team members. And don't profess to know everything, because you will never will know everything. And the thing that Bill Gates always said, always hire people who are smarter than you. And don't pretend to be so smart, you know. We are not the smartest. So there's always somebody smarter and somebody smarter. Bill Gates said that my magic was I hired people who were much smarter than me. And then the difficulty is how do you manage smart people? It's not easy.
So speaking of people, the common criticism I always hear from CEOs and HR departments is there's not enough talent in Malaysia. I'm not sure I agree, but I would like to hear from you.
Definitely, I don't agree. I think there's so much of talent. Look at the ideation that's coming out of Malaysia. Okay, I know we lost a lot of talent to Singapore, to Australia, but even then, when you run hackathons, when you run events, when you look at the kind of talent, I tell you Malaysia's got superb ideation, superb entrepreneurship, so much. But you know what we lack? Branding. We don't have enough branding. We don't have enough people who can speak very well, who can articulate, right? So I would disagree. I think there's a lot of talent, but they're hidden. They're hidden. It's how we bring them out.
Okay. And can you elaborate on that branding piece a little bit more? what do you say? I know you spoke about people not being able to articulate it, but the other part that I've noticed is speaking to a little bit, a few of the SMEs is that sometimes their business model is, like you mentioned, first mover advantage in Malaysia. And I think part of growing is trying to get into the region, right, and going out. And what can they do to do that?
So when I say branding, it's a big word. And I think what we lack is basically storytelling. Right? We lack storytelling. We lack about how we can say something without really saying it. The Americans are beautiful in this. I mean, they can take a glass that's this much of water, and they can say that it's full, best. We will have a full glass of water. We don't know how to talk about it, right? So I think the whole thing about storytelling, about that subtle way of selling, not all of us have it, right? So I think, and today I was in a panel, and someone rightfully said that in the US, everyone's urged to speak. Everyone's urged to speak your mind. Everyone's urged to articulate, to present. I don't know whether our schooling system is on the same page, right? So that was an interesting panel this morning, just now. And I think those things have all got to change, right? It's to be able to talk and tell your story.
And a lot of that has to come from that. I think if you have that passion, you'll find a way to tell your story, right?
You know, it's like trying to date a girl, right? If you like someone, you will make sure you tell the story. So they use that for your business.
Okay.
Guys, I'm not picking on the girl, but both. It's like trying to sell yourself, right? You do so much of passion.
And
why are you nodding?
No. I'm not available.
You're nodding.
I'm not available. Okay. So, what's the perception from the outside in of the Malaysian SME ecosystem? So, from the region, when they look at a Malaysian company trying to break in, how well received are Malaysian companies going abroad?
I think it depends on the country you're there, but Malaysia generally has got a very good reputation outside. Like I said, I think there are lots of Malaysian companies doing lots of work in different countries, but we lack. We are now beginning in the program that I'm running. We are now beginning to uncover these companies and bringing them out, because the storytelling, the branding is not there. People don't know these companies. There are companies that we discovered. They are such a niche leader, and they're doing so well in the region, but we didn't know about them until now. The program is bringing them out and saying, "Hey, do you know this company? Do you know this company?" So to answer the question, yeah, I think we're doing already quite well, but what we need to do is to bring them out, surface them, okay, right? Give them the visibility.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna ask one more question before I switch to Q&A from the floor, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot more interesting questions from the floor than I can come up with here. So just before we go to Q&A, if you had to give one advice, just one, to the SME out there, what would it be?
Do it now. I waited too long. I did it when I was 42, 43. I waited too long. Do it now. You got a good idea, be brave. And what I learned from Silicon Valley, don't be afraid of failure. It doesn't matter, everyone fails, so don't be afraid of it. Don't be shy. You know, before I went to Silicon Valley, I did 4 startups, right? Three were good, one failed. I always said 3. But after I went there, they said failures, it's okay. So now I say I did 4 startups, 1 failed. So that one advice, do it now. Don't wait.
Okay.